And the way that I use sage, and it's kind of smoking right now. So I truly believe that with intention, and this is just like with prayer, that it doesn't matter what physical space you're in, your intention transcends physical spaces. And so as I'm saging, I use the beautiful sacred plant of sage to purify the space, to set the intention of peace and heart-centeredness so that we can be open to one another in our gathering. And I use sage as well just to help us to let go of anything that we're holding on to that we don't need at this moment. And we can just allow to dissipate like the smoke. And we thank God and the universe and all those who are watching over us, our ancestors, our loved ones, both on earth and in spirit, to be here to guide us. And as we think of the word surrender, as we're going to talk about today, there are many, many ways that we can understand and feel that word as we hear it in our bodies, and think about what that word has meant to us throughout our life and how maybe it's changed and how maybe it has evolved. And as we go on our journey today, thinking about this word, surrender, we open ourselves to the possibilities of how that word can shape new knowings and understandings that uplift and also that bring us a sense of complete peace within. So with that, I'm going to ask Lynn, Mom, to begin. And this is the beautiful part where Lynn reminds us, like connects the thread of the last session into this present session, into the here and now, and reminds us where we've been to help bring us into this moment where we are interconnected here together. So thanks, Mom.
Okay, you're welcome, Cristina. Last 2 months ago, which was the last time that we were able to be together, Pat told the story of breadcrumbs and how breadcrumbs connect our lives. And she referred to Saint Teresa of Avila and a translation of Saint Teresa of Avila's work by Mirabai Starr. And the quotation that connected with me was about the bee in the garden from one of Saint Teresa of Avila's works. She was very much an observer of nature. And Pat used this quotation and said, "The bee in the garden goes to all the flowers in the garden and brings back pollen to my heart and makes honey and shares it with others." So that was the impetus for the writing that is going to be shared today. And as I was putting this together, I found out that when a bee collects pollen, the pollen is called bee bread. So that I thought, oh, that connects to Pat's breadcrumbs. And then when the bee collects pollen, the bee puts the pollen in its bread baskets, which could be its hind legs or whatever that particular species of bee stores the bread. So bread basket, bee bread, breadcrumbs. I just loved this particular imagery that was beginning to happen. So here we go with what came of that. There's much to learn from the symbiosis of bee and flower. Their connection, a beneficial affection, enhances this pair's power to survive. The blossom opens its petal to greet the morning sun, emitting a fragrance into the air, which entices the bee to arrive from the hive and enter its center, to collect pollen in baskets and imbibe nectar. The bee, in return for this sweet gesture, dusts the flower with loose pollen grains, remains it has gathered on its hind legs from a multitude of floral entries and exits, pollinating each plant in a life-generating unanimity, nature's synchronous symmetry. Weighed down with these offerings received from its foraging flowery quest, the bee returns to the nest, surrendering for the sake of the colony, the pollen and sugary potion. Pollen is bee bread, rich in protein, and nectar generates energy for motion. As we make our human connections on this journey, what breadcrumbs are we collecting that nourish and flourish our and the well-being of others? How are we gifts to others and others to us, as the bee is to the flower and the flower to the bee, in a symphonious harmony? Now, on the next page, I included, during this time of writing, of course, I am a collector of quotations, and it just seemed that during this particular time of writing, these three quotations, one from Rumi, one from Meister Eckhart, and one from the current editor of Parabola magazine, just happened to enter into my space, and so I included those as further reflections for this connection between the bee and the flower, between ourselves and others.
What I'll do is I'll go next. I was also thinking and reflecting on the word surrender and what it's meant to me throughout my own life. And what one of the things that I was reminded of today was a song that I used to listen to years ago, by somebody named David Sylvian, an artist and a poet and musician. And I can't play the song because of YouTube. They'll take this video off if you even play like 2 bars of the song. But I do have the video, the song integrated into the website, so you can listen to it at your leisure. But I wanted to read the lyrics and think about the way that surrender is being used in the song, and maybe just a couple of reflections that I've had about that. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. Okay, and all right. And if I'm looking up, it's because my monitor is a little up. So the song is called I Surrender. I opened up the pathway of the heart. The flowers died, embittered from the start. That night I crossed the bridge of sighs and I surrendered. I looked back and glimpsed the outline of a boy, his life of sorrows now collapsing into joy. And tonight the stars are all aligned and I surrender. My mother cries beneath a southern sky, and I surrender. Recording angels and the poets of the night bring back the trophies of the battles that we fight. Searchlights fill the open skies, and I surrender. Outrageous cries of love have called me back, derailed the trains of thoughts, demolished wayward tracks. You tell me I've no need to wonder why. I just surrender. I stand too close to see the sleight of hand, how she found this child inside the frightened man. Tonight I'm learning how to fly, and I surrender. I've traveled all this way for your embrace, enraptured by the recognition on your face. Hold me now while my old life dies tonight, and I surrender. My mother cries beneath the open skies, and I surrender. An ancient evening just before the fall, the light in your eyes, the meaning of it all. Birds fly and fill the summer skies, and I surrender. She throws the burning books into the sea. Come find the meaning of the word inside of me. It's all right, the stars are aligned, and I surrender. My mother cries beneath the moonlit skies, and I surrender. My body turns to ashes in her hands, the disappearing world of footprints in the sand. Tell me now this love will never die, and I'll surrender. My mother cries beneath the open skies, and I surrender. So I put the song here for you to listen to if you wanted to at any point, and I'm going to stop the share. But this song has held different meaning for me over the years. And every time I read it or I read the lyrics or listen to the music, I have it's fascinating with poetry and with art and with song, how you mark your life by the moment you hear something or that you see something or that you experience something, and how when you go back to revisit it, it has like spiraled, like Chardin Mom, like you always talk about the spiraling back. I feel like I've spiraled back to this song, but now there's deeper meaning now that I'm a 50-year-old woman I turned 50 in May. And that was a huge marker for me. And going back to this song, kind of, I see images in my head of the ways that surrender in my life has allowed me to be conscious of who I am in this moment as a mother, as a wife, as a professional in education, as a spiritual being who is still trying to find that path. And what I love about the song is it takes you on a journey of somebody's life, from a boy to their ashes, and all the different ways that our cycles of life keep bringing us back to these moments where we know that to live life, there is a need to surrender to the higher good, or to God, or to the universe. And there's sadness, it's bittersweet, it's beautiful, it's joyous, it's traumatic, it's beautiful, it's terrifying, it's all of those things. But we keep finding ourselves on the path and finding moments where we have to surrender parts of who we are or who we are in a moment to be able to move to the next level of our own consciousness and our own being on this path. And so just wanted to share that with you because I have just derived so much deep meaning from these words, but also just in reflection about my own life cycles and how I keep coming back to the same themes, but they've deepened along the path. Like the path is the same, but it's been more enriched with every time I walk on it. So thank you so much.